How's it going, everybody? So today in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about how my views on health have changed over the last, I guess we'll say 6 years, okay? So my health journey essentially started around 2012 when I had a bunch of strange health issues. Some of them are things like, well, for one, my doctor told me I had diabetes. Then he quickly took it back when I actually scheduled an appointment to talk about it, and he told me I had a slight concentration of hepatitis and a slight condition of hyperthyroid. But he said a slight concentration of hepatitis. That makes no sense. Either you have hepatitis or you fucking don't. Anyway, the doctor clearly was full of crap and basically told me I had diabetes and then backtracked it. So that didn't sound too good. And of course, I had a history of drinking energy drinks all throughout the day, and my diet was horrible. My nutrition was horrible. I definitely was going to die pretty soon if I continued eating and drinking the way that I did. Drinking energy drinks. I never drank alcohol at that point. Anyway, the symptoms I was experiencing were things like depersonalization, where you felt like you were living in a dream. My body would go numb all the time. I had like breathing issues, like I couldn't breathe. I forgot what the fuck the term was. Hyperventilation syndrome. And I had bad acne, and I had all sorts of problems. I couldn't sleep for a long period of time. And of course, for the majority of my life, I was on psychiatric drugs, like Seroquel and medications and things like that. I was on like 1,200 milligrams of Seroquel since I was like 8 or 9 years old, all the way until I was about 21 in 2012. And I got myself off those drugs. I knew that they were bad, but I was prescribed them for issues I had growing up, schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. But eventually I realized that I didn't need them and I needed to get off of them, and I was just experiencing so many issues. I needed to get my health on check. So that was 2012, and I felt horrible. I remember I was super irritable, especially, I guess probably mainly because I came off of those psychiatric drugs. That was probably the main reason why I had a lot of those mental issues, was because of the drug side effects. But anyway, I was coming off those drugs or whatever, and I was getting my health back on check in 2012. And, the hyperventilation syndrome, where I couldn't breathe, the lack of sleep. Oh, and of course my sexual function was horrible. Like, my dick didn't work. I had like some very just severe like issues going on that were really ruining my quality of life. And I was questioning, what is life? Who am I? All sorts of things. And I remember I'd be researching my diseases or my symptoms or whatever, and I thought I had all sorts of diseases and whatnot. So I was like researching, and it started off with WebMD and shit like that. Then I started watching more health videos. From 2012 until about early 2014, I was very, very lost. I was feeling horrible. I felt horrible. I really just felt like I was in a horrible, I had a horrible health condition. I was just scrambling, doing everything I could to try to get out of it. I read CureZone forums and all sorts of Launch City and all sorts of health forums with people that are trying to reverse diseases and stuff like that. And I was watching videos of people healing, especially the raw vegan diet, and all the people that were saying they were healing themselves of cancer and things on that diet. And so, lots and lots of hypochondria, lots of health anxiety, And lots of real tangible problems, physical and mental problems, were going on with me from 2012 to 2014. And then, you know, in summer of 2014, I was hanging out with a good friend of mine. His name is Polo, and he worked at my local health food store. And he was always giving me suggestions and trying to help me out with different suggestions and things. And he's been, you know, doing the holistic health thing for over a decade. And now he's actually a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, which is great, and acupuncturist. But, you know, he really helped catapult me to where I needed to be in life and which direction I needed to go. So then I tried, you know, I got in this phase where I couldn't eat anything but organic food. This was from, you know, late 2013, until like, you know, mid 2016. For 3 years, I just couldn't eat anything but organic food because I was so scared of like all the toxins and the additives that are in the majority of our food. I was very, very scared of these things, and you know, it pissed me off that they put these things in our food. And so I just spent all my money on food, all my money on supplements, and I would never eat out. I would hardly ever eat out, and I would always cook my food at home. I had very little time. I was struggling to enjoy life for a long period of time, and it was very challenging. I was very, very strict with the organic foods and the supplements, and I was very much into longevity. And in 2014, I was experimenting with all sorts of diets. I did the Mediterranean diet. I did a gluten-free diet. I did a vegetarian diet. I went dairy-free. I did raw veganism. I started doing raw veganism in 2014. I was doing the paleo diet in 2014. I tried all sorts of different variations, and from around September of 2014 up until about December of 2014, I was doing a fruitarian diet, and I think every now and then I would eat like white rice, and I was just eating nothing but raw foods, like raw fruits and vegetables, and I think I had done like fruit juice every now and then and stuff like that. And I felt clean for a long period of time. I felt like my body needed that. I felt very clear-headed and clean and pretty hyped up, I guess, from all the sugar, who knows. I felt really light. I lost all my strength on my lifts. And I became very skinny. After a while, you know, the good feelings kind of faded away, and I started to feel very depleted. So I began to kind of get more into holistic health and herbalism, and I started to take holy basil, jiagulan, leganosema, you know, ginseng, and tonic herbs religiously, basically, like every day, and I was very adamant about that. And I started to partake in more of a traditional Chinese medicine diet around that time, which is around December of 2014 and January of 2015. I was very much into breathing, meditation, balancing the energy through nutrition and lifestyle, and using herbs. And I would mainly eat, you know, the highest quality of foods, organic and grass-fed. You know, for that period of time, that was the majority of what I ate, you know. And I felt much better doing the traditional Chinese medicine diet, but there was still, you know, doing the balanced moderation type thing with the herbs and whatnot. But there was, like, I felt great, but, you know, mentally and emotionally, but physically there were still some issues, like the hives and digestive issues, which I now know are food intolerances from certain complex carbohydrates, grains, beans, stuff like that. And I didn't know at the time I was also intolerant to dairy. Now I know I have like a allergy or intolerance to dairy that causes severe mood swings. Yeah, dairy can cause some severe mental issues. But I was still very strict about my nutrition around that time. So from 2013 until 2016, I was very, very strict about my nutrition, and whatever protocol I was doing, I was trying to do it to the T. And I remember I would go over to my family's house for Christmas and for Halloween, or not Halloween, but for Christmas and Thanksgiving and whatnot. And they would all be eating their dinner, their dishes and stuff. My mom would always make different dishes, mainly like European style dishes, like different casseroles and stuff like that. And then her husband would make like his own Hawaiian dishes and whatnot. And they would all be enjoying their family dinners and their pies and shit like that. But for me, I saw all that food as toxic. Especially when I was vegan. When I was vegan, I honestly felt like I was better than everybody. When I was vegan, I would see meat eaters, and I'd go by like any restaurant that served meat, and I just felt like they were pigs. I felt like at the time I felt like anybody who ate meat was a pig. And it's really crazy how buying into an ideology can change your mind like that. It's actually it's crazy, There's people that, are very adamant Christians, and anybody who's not Christians, they just see them as like slime. And there's people that, are atheists and they see Christians as slime. And, veganism was pretty bad with that. It really morphed me. But it was good because it cleaned out my system, and it also helped me see how food influences your body, And that was a big, big example of that, because I felt completely different. But yeah, I can't begin to explain how, hard, like how stressful it is to go out, well, for one, to be judging everybody like that, and for two, to be going to your family's house for, holidays, and to, judge them, to always want to criticize them for their eating habits. Like every time they brought up food, and I still do that, I still want to do this, but not as much as I used to. I'd want to tell them, well, hey, maybe if you, didn't eat all that meat, you wouldn't feel that way, or, it's very stressful. And, you think you're right, but the reality of things is, in what context? If you want to increase your health, you do this. But if you don't want to increase your health, then does it matter so much in that case scenario? Anyway, yeah, so it was kind of harmful in a way. So it was very imbalanced, and it was causing a lot of issues, in my own physical health, in my own life as an individual, but especially in interrelational health, social health. That's the thing. You need to have health in all aspects. And this really damaged my relationship with friends and with family, and it was pretty horrible. And also, I'd always feel depleted, especially if I went to my family's house. My mom would always try to accommodate me. She'd buy me a big thing of greens. I'd eat the whole thing. But I just felt horrible. And part of that is that I didn't know what I was doing. But even when I did, like I remember, so that was, the vegan thing, the raw vegan thing lasted until December of 2014. But then, in early 2015, after January, after January with the holistic health thing, where with the Chinese medicine diet, I was feeling good, but I still had allergies and intolerances to certain foods I didn't know at the time. But then, in February and early March, I went through this phase of not even caring about what I ate, and I just ate the pasta and cheese and whatever I could get my hands on, because I was doing powerlifting at the time. But I felt horrible and didn't realize it. I felt very horrible. Even though I was eating more calories, it didn't seem to give me the strength building benefit that I wanted. But I remember after I went through that little phase in February of 2015, in late March, I met this girl or whatever, and she was kind of like a friends with benefits type of thing. Of course, she wanted to be with me, that's how it goes. But, she was really cool, and she was one of those, she was getting into that hippie spiritual type nonsense, where you want to feel spiritual, but in reality, you're just kind of seeing yourself as enlightened to compensate for insecurities and interpersonal problems. You know, where like if her mom had problems with her, you know, she would just use it as a cop out. Like, oh, she's just not enlightened like me. You know, maybe one day she'll be spiritual. You know, she'll awaken her pineal gland and, you know, see life the way I see it. You know, you know, unenlightened scumbags or whatever. She was using that as a cop out, but. You know, she was really into, you know, she was kind of into vegetarianism and veganism to an extent. I don't remember exactly, but I know for me, I was really, you know, researching. At that time, I was really getting into science, and I was watching 2-hour long lectures between doctors, and I was watching debates between paleo doctors and vegan doctors. I was really into the science of health. And, you know, it was an introduction. It wasn't really the science yet, even though I was experimenting and researching for, you know, years before that. But I was watching, you know, I was listening to scientists, and I was listening to the opinions of these science-based individuals. And I started to get really, like, religious about veganism at that time, because I was in a Dr. John McDougall and Esselstyn, and you know, Joel Furman or whatever, and Dean Ornish. And so I got into the, you know, high carb, low fat vegan diet, and I was doing the starchitarian type thing, the starch-based diet. And at first I felt okay, but the more starches I added to my diet, the worse and worse I felt. And I had this mysterious condition of hives, which actually, the hives actually started in early 2014. I was getting really bad hives. But this lasted for a while, and they would come and go. And it seemed random. Most people think, oh, it's just random. No one knows, you know, it's just random. But no, there was something that I was eating, and if you're a smart motherfucker, if you have any... You know, if you have an IQ above 100, you should be able to realize, oh, there's probably a pattern. I should look for the pattern, right? I don't know why people are so dense they don't do that. So I began to look for the pattern, and I realized that, you know, beans and certain complex grains and stuff like that were causing me issues. And so I realized that a starch-based vegan diet was not going to work for me. So for the longest time, you see, I was vegan, I was starch-based vegan from late March 2015 all the way until early June of 2015. And I tried everything I could to make it work, and I tried really hard to fix my digestive system. You know, I did the probiotics and enzymes, I chewed my food more thoroughly, I did all sorts of crazy things. I made like black bean congee, and nothing seemed to fix that issue. So eventually I just decided it wasn't going to work for me. I wasn't able to get enough calories in with my lack of digestion of starches. You know, if I'm not getting it from starches, where am I getting my calories from? So I started the paleo diet at the beginning of June 2015, and I stopped worrying so much about, you know, organic and grass-fed for a while, and I just started focusing more on the types of food I was eating, because I noticed I didn't really seem to get any benefit from higher quality foods at the time. You know, the most effective thing seemed to have been following principles. I noticed when I did the traditional Chinese medicine balance, energy balance type of nutrition, I felt amazing. There were some things I needed to remove from that. I noticed when I did the vegan, I started to feel really fucked up. But then when I did the paleo and just removed certain foods that were fucking with me, I started to feel better. And so I started to see that there were some foods that made me feel like shit and some foods that made me feel good. And I started to realize over the course of the next 2 years, it's very clear that most of my issues were caused by overthinking and what I was eating. Okay. Of course, I went from eating drinking shit tons of energy drinks and snack cakes and sugar and cheese and all sorts of crazy things. And I used to eat like a whole bag of cheese a day, it was retarded. I don't know what I was thinking. This is back in 2012 and up to 2014. I was eating a bunch of bullshit. And I was eating all organic, but I was still eating excess amounts of different things. I was eating all organic, like pasta, rice, whatever it was, whole bags of cheese in excess, and it was fucking horrible. A pound of meat in one meal with like a pound of potatoes and a half a bag of cheese. It was retarded. What the fuck was I doing? And this was 2012, 2013. This was, the worst thing you can think of. I felt horrible. My digestion was sluggish, all sorts of shit. And I was drinking all sorts of energy drinks and things, especially before that. Most of my, from time I was 17 all the way till I was like 23, I was drinking shit tons of energy drinks and sugar. So I had all sorts of physical problems. And when I started to sort these things out and really, try different diets and pay attention to how they made me feel, I was able to recognize patterns in the things that, I was eating and how I was feeling. And based on the patterns I was seeing, I started to remove some things from my nutrition. I started to add more things, and I started to develop a nutritional, approach that had the most impact and benefits on my life. Okay, and so, I yo-yoed around. 2016, I tried like a gallon of milk a day diet, and then I did ketogenic diet earlier on in that year. In late 2015, I tried keto. I did, and then in 2017, I started to kind of started to really get back to balance and whatnot. I tried all sorts of things, and, I tried like intermittent fasting, and I mean like 20-hour fasts, and I did the warrior diet, which actually could have been good if I did it differently. So where I am today is basically, and this is how I've been for, consistently for months now. Occasionally I'll have random inspirations to try something new. Like earlier this year, I started doing, I added milk back into my diet, and I was hoping to gain more strength if I did like shit tons of dairy, and it just made me feel like crap, because apparently I seem to have an allergy to, I think, casein protein. But it caused me all sorts of issues. I recognize, like, me and my girlfriend both. My girlfriend says it's extremely noticeable. When I start eating dairy, my mood goes all over the place. And then also, I have trouble breathing when I do dairy. Then when I remove dairy, I can breathe better, and my mental health is better. It's really fascinating, how removing a simple food group can change your life in that way. And I tried different forms of dairy too. But anyway, so there was that. And, recently I tried an experiment where I added wheat back into my diet. I noticed, no gas or anything crazy. Didn't seem to cause too many problems other than like constipation, and a lack of appetite and nausea to an extent, depending on what I was eating and whatnot. But so other than those two things, the last couple of months, 'cause I like experimenting. I try a lot of different things because I think I'm a natural scientist at heart. You know, I experiment, I observe, I analyze and reflect, and I'm always tweaking my program, not tweaking crack or whatever, I guess. But the basic principles I found through all of this that seem to make the most difference is this here. The source of most people's problems is, number one, they don't reflect enough, okay? They're not grounded in reality and reflecting in reality, okay? Like, people are delusional. They're like, oh, like, you know, I can eat whatever I want, and, you know, what I eat has nothing to do with my diabetes or my heart disease or whatever. You know, it's not my fault I got bad genetics. You know, people aren't making this realization between food and how you feel and your diseases. They're not making the connection between nutrition and your health. So they're not thinking enough is the first thing. The second thing is people think too much, and this is where I was for a long time. When I first started this, I was overthinking everything, and I thought that every single food that I ate was causing me some kind of illness or disease. And, you know, that's part of why I experimented with all sorts of weird nutritional plans and things, is because, you know, I was a hypochondriac. So, you know, couldn't eat wheat, couldn't eat milk, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And, you know, what really kind of helped me is just saying, okay, if meat causes disease, I'll remove it for a while and see what happens, you know. If wheat causes disease, I'll remove it for a while and see what happens, you know, and then I'll add it back. And through those types of experiments, and then keeping a journal where I write down what's going on, I see what is impacting me negatively the most and what's not really impacting me at all, etc. So now I don't really think too much about everything. I focus mostly on what makes the most difference. So, you know, there's some products that I'm not as scared of as I used to be. For example, you know, I work out intensely. I do Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, and MMA every single day. And I really love getting cracked out on pre-workouts. Okay, I love getting hyped up on some really strong pre-workouts before my lifting. Not before MMA or anything like that, but before my lifting. I love that. It just makes me feel amazing, and it just gets me in the right mindset. Makes me feel amazing the whole day. And, you know, a lot of the best pre-workouts, unfortunately, they have, you know, artificial sweeteners and artificial coloring. Although they've been cutting down on a lot of these things the last couple of years. And so, you know, I've developed a pretty good relationship with my local health food store, and they're always giving me free samples and stuff. And one of the beauties of my lifestyle lately has been trying new pre-workouts. Me and my girlfriend will go and we'll try some new, whatever we think sounds cool. Because the short-term effects of these artificial sweeteners and whatnot are non-existent. Like short-term side effects. The long-term side effects, I mean, how significant is it going to be if, you know, we have a pre-workout, but every single other thing in our nutrition and lifestyle is on point? Probably not going to impact us that much. Now the stimulants, like the Yohimbe and caffeine and stuff like that, that's a different story. But of course, you know, through all the research and all of the experience that I've had and experiments and observation, I can see when caffeine is starting to cause an issue and back away from it and try something different. You know, the other thing is I see that as long as I'm following the right principles, as long as I'm limiting, as long as I'm focusing on the food groups that I know are going to provide energy for my body but not cause harm, we can eat out. We actually eat out now. Back in the day I couldn't, I was scared because it wasn't organic or grass fed. And when I go over to my family, if I eat there, if they have food or whatever, I'm not gonna eat, some kind of sweet potato casserole with marshmallows and shit. I'm not gonna eat, something with margarine or hydrogenated oils that I know has that in there. But I will eat, whatever foods abide by the most important principles in my nutrition. Whatever's going to make me feel good in my stomach and in my body. What's going to give me energy instead of make me feel tired. So I can eat, whatever turkey or chicken or whatever, that my mother makes. And I can have some rice, or I can bring my own rice if necessary. And I don't have to go starving and be awkward with my family or my friends. I can go out to sushi buffets because I only eat specific sushi from specific places. I don't go for the crazy ones with the spicy mayo and all that nonsense. We just get rice, raw fish, and then I have some greens on the side. I mean, that's what I eat at home because that's what I feel is one of the healthiest things for my own body. And science backs that up, and so does my experience. But on the other hand, you're not going to see me get fried cheese rangoons or eat some meats with some really like crazy sauce on it, or you're not going to find me eating foods that make me gassy or anything of that nature, unless I'm going through an experiment of some kind. I still eat. The majority of my foods are plant foods, but they're plant foods that benefit my body and don't cause me issues. You're not going to find me eating like brown rice or something that I can't digest just because they claim there's more nutrients in it. I eat jasmine rice because, it gives me the energy I need and doesn't bog me down. And really just, seeing things in a holistic fashion. This is what holistic healing is all about. Taking the supplements to make the most impact. Like, I'm not gonna fuck around and waste my money on supplements that claim to do something, but I don't really see a result. Like, oh, this resveratrol, it boosts your longevity and blah, blah, blah. But then when you take it, like, after months, you don't really notice a difference. You're just taking it because you think it's gonna boost your lifespan because it's been shown in like vitro studies or something. To me, that kind of thing, if you have the money, it's probably not a bad idea if you know what you're doing, but I don't think it really makes that much sense. I mean, there's plenty of herbs that increase your longevity and make you feel great within the short term, like Siberian ginseng, Euler 3.0, Panax ginseng, etc. So, if you have a logical approach to this whole thing and you don't allow yourself to get caught up in dogma and rigidity, like just being overly strict and being scared to eat anything that's not organic and stuff like that, I don't think it's necessary to do all that. As a matter of fact, if it's causing you causing you stress or suffocation or awkwardness, or as long as you're not eating like junk, as long as you're not like, oh, like I don't want to be rigid, so I'm gonna eat at Taco Bell, or I don't want to be rigid, so I'm gonna do like French fries and McDonald's and a milkshake and blah blah blah, M&Ms or whatever, as long as you're not doing that stupid shit. I don't do like cheat days, okay? I eat holistically, logically, and within these principles, I never feel depleted, or I never feel deprived or anything like that, because I know everything I do is benefiting me in some way and is not taking from me, and it's always giving more than it takes. If I felt like something was going to ruin my longevity or significantly impact my health in the short or long term, you would not see me do it. That's the thing. I'm not trying to lie to myself. Like, I'm always super skeptical about, am I just trying to convince myself that this is okay to eat, That's the thing, though, is I've always been over skeptical, and overthinking is one of the most unhealthiest things that you can do. So, basically, I went from severe hypochondria to taking control of my health and trying all sorts of different things and suffering to finally figuring out what works for me. It's been a very long road, and I've tried so many different things, but I feel amazing now. And you're gonna run into these crazy fucking people who like, oh, you gotta eat all organic and wild crafted, grow your own vegetables or you're gonna die. But how much of an impact is that going to make? I don't see myself dying at 60 years old because of what I'm doing right now. I think if I started to eat French fries, deep fried chicken and shit like that, like everyone else in America, sodas and shit like that, I don't even do that once. Not once you're going to find me eating fried chicken or French fries or something. Unless I go to like a Chinese restaurant and they have like the chef's special chicken, where they basically take like chicken and they deep fry it in like soybean oil or whatever. Now that's probably not the healthiest thing, but I might do that every now and then. And the way they put the spices and chives and other amazing things on there, that's delicious. That's a treat. But you're not gonna find me eating like like deep fried battered chicken or and whatever. You're not going to find me doing that kind of nonsense because that's going to significantly harm my health. You're not going to find me eating conventional bacon, with the nitrates and shit like that. You're not going to find me eating processed meats. Every now and then I might go to my local butcher and get uncured, all natural, pasture raised, fucking bacon or something. I might do that once in a blue moon. But I hardly even do that. So yeah, I mean there is a middle ground. There is a holistic way to have quality and quantity of life. And remember, I mean, this rigidity and stress is probably going to lower your lifespan more than if you were to allow yourself to have a house-made corn tortilla taco every now and then, or sushi buffet or something. So, I mean, I'd love to hear people's opinions on this, and if you've listened this far, let me know. I want to hear if you've actually got to the end of this video, because this is a pretty long one. I basically just told my life story, and there's so much more I have to talk about all this too. So leave your questions and comments down below, and I'll talk to you later.